Good morning, my friends. Lama Jigme Gyatso of the Buddha Joy Meditation School. Today I'm being interviewed by Patrick, who himself is a meditation professional. Now, before we get into the meditation, I want to remind you to find that red subscribe button, give it a click, and then find the icon that looks like a bell. Click that as well, so you'll be notified of the next video. Patrick, take it away.
So, my name is Patrick Zeiss, and I'm a writer at a website called balancedachievement.com, and there we focus on different topics related to spirituality, psychology, and personal development. I'm also training to become an MBSR instructor. So this is the program that was developed by Jon Kabat-Zinn in the late 1970s. I guess I first became interested in Buddhism and spirituality in 2009 and 2010 after backpacking throughout India for 3 months.
Wow, that's impressive. Do you remember any Hindi?
I do not, no.
I know, I think 5 words.
5 Hindi words?
Yeah, I mean, because I was in a relationship with a girl who was half Indian, so let's see. Words I remember. Gyo, which literally means heart, but metaphorically means love. Dubba, which means container, completely different. Haldi, which you might put in a container, we call it turmeric. Let's see. Shalo means come on, and of course, namaste. Oh, yes, and shukriya, which means thank you.
Okay.
That's all I got.
No, I got
India, and I'll starve to death.
No, I know some, I guess, some of the food because it's delicious, but beyond that.
Right. Samosa.
Yeah, right.
Yes. Aloo gobi.
Yeah. No, I've kept those words with me.
Yes. Useful for making friends while ordering at an Indian restaurant.
Yeah, right.
Okay, so I'm hoping to be wowed and surprised by what questions you have for me.
Sure. So I thought that maybe we could just start with a little bit of background about yourself, if that's okay.
Well, that's a great question. A lot of people have that question. One of my late mentors, I would call him a lineage teacher. His name was Zamputu Rinpoche. He's considered one of the greatest Tibetan yogis in the 19th century. And he didn't really talk about himself. The only time he would tell a story was to illustrate another point. So he really taught me to be really just in the here and the now, and to only use our personal stories as illustrations to make points. Now you could say, but wait, you oddly dressed fellow, how can I find out if you are a charlatan? How do I know if you are worthy to teach the Dharma? And according to Buddha, according to the Paninibbana Sutta, there's only one way to know. Only one way to know if a teacher or a teaching is worth its salt, and that is to apply it for a week. You apply it and you get shit results, then run. Don't walk to a new teacher. But if you get good results, then come back and more teaching. So I've got over 1,000 videos on YouTube, each one more amateurish than the next. So the key is simple. Find a video that speaks to you, apply it. If you get shit results, then it doesn't matter if I'm the real deal. Go find a better teacher.
Sure. Were you born and raised in the United States?
Mm-hmm.
And California is where you're located, is that correct?
That's right. If only I surfed, then I could be fully cliche between my reading and my fitness.
Sure. So as far as the questions that I have, just a little bit of background about the article that I'm going to write. So it's going to be like the title of it is like 5 spiritual teachers on how to deal with the divisive political climate in America.
Can you rename it 4 spiritual teachers and an oddly dressed wise ass?
I could do that. I I don't know if that,
We do
I
have
don't know.
a divisive culture right now. I'd
I
love
don't,
to jump right into that. Could we?
yeah, of course we can. So,
Yes. Well, can I just jump off of something that's just on my head right now?
sure.
Okay, standard now. So my first thought is this: I have a big man crush on Elon Musk. Not necessarily what he does on Twitter, because it exhausts the people. You should not be allowed to tweet unless you've had 6 hours, consecutive hours of sleep. That's my policy. Mr. President. Okay, so Elon Musk says that if he had his way, every child beginning in elementary school would be taught critical reasoning skills so they could spot logical fallacies like that. Oh my goodness. If you have a dry book on logical fallacies and you want to see them illustrated, watch network news.
Right. Absolutely. No, I agree. So the first question I had was, what advice would you offer to Americans who are struggling to come to terms with, make sense of the country's current political climate?
Okay, here's the first thing. Regardless of which spiritual tradition speaks to you, regardless of which subsect of each spiritual tradition, whether it's fundamentalist or liberal, whether it's patriarchal or matriarchal, whether it's yang or whether it's yin, all spiritual traditions at least pay lip service to compassion. The biographies, real or allegorical, of all the great spiritual teachers feature the dance of wisdom and compassion. Whether you dig Buddha or Christ or Vishnu or Lao Tzu or the notables of Wicca and the like, all of them chose wisdom and compassion. And wisdom is different from cleverness. A clever man or woman can score points in a political debate. A wise man or woman won't participate in a feces throwing contest. Who wants to win first prize in a poop throwing contest? Hands? Anyone? Anyone at all? No one. No one wants to be the winner of that contest if they're wise. So, first things first, at the end of the day, regardless of the issue, are we choosing compassion? Let's take a contested topic, abortion. If someone sincerely believes that a fetus is sentient and a zygote is sentient within the belly of its mother, and you want to protect it, then I would say run with that football of compassion all the way to the end zone, beyond the end zone, and down the road. Have compassion for that zygote, for that embryo, for that fetus, but then also have compassion for that infant, for that toddler, for that tween, for that adolescent, and for that adult, and the eventual geriatric. If someone sincerely believes that abortion is bad and we must protect an unborn child, then they must also, support a social safety net, Medicare for all, mental health for all, education for all, whether it's vocational training or academia. If a zygote must be cared for, even at the cost of its mother's life, that some people insist, so should the after, the post-birth being. If we really honestly think that, for want of a better term, unauthorized immigration is going to destroy this nation, if we really sincerely believe that, then let's be strategic. Let's not put a Band-Aid upon a spurting arterial wound. Let's nip it in the bud first. So instead of treating unauthorized immigration as the cause, treat it as the symptom and work back. Hire some sociologists, get some experts in there to develop hypotheses and then test those hypotheses and then submit those tests or those findings to peer review. And most likely you'll find that there are political and economic causes for unauthorized immigration. And if those political needs and economic needs are met, people are going to be more content to live and die in where they're at. So if we sincerely believe what we say on any issue, then let's approach that issue with maximum wisdom and maximum compassion. Now, here's, to paraphrase Shakespeare, that's the rub. Because you get someone that, once any political pundit has enough beers inside of them, the truth begins to come out. And the truth is often far less polished than the reasons they give after a 3 latte or doing a 3 latte interview when they're all amped up and they've got the talking points. For instance, some people will say you can't pay workers enough or they will lose their motivation to work. Those same pundits will turn around and say, well, we have to overpay CEOs or they won't have motivation to work. When you get beyond the hyperbole, pseudo-logic, and mask falls off like the end of a Mission Impossible movie. What they're basically saying is they like greed. He lives greed for the many on the backs. Greed for the few on the backs of the many. That's unpopular. So they have to cover it up with reasonable sounding platitudes. And if that doesn't work, hysteria. That's a good go-to. Now, I'm going to be, in the name of full disclosure, I am Peter Progressive. Sure. I love Cornel West. If I had a picture of him, I would kiss it every night before bed. I love Jill Stein. I love Cornel West. So there's lots, I'm totally progressive, but my dearest relatives worship before the altar of Fox News. I love them to death. I'm not going to help anyone by pissing on their shoes. I have to be reasonable and sensitive and wise and gentle in my approach. And I have to exercise the humility that says, I've had my share of bad ideas. I've had my share of false starts and misperceptions. So perhaps the ideas that I hold to be self-evident or incorrect. And perhaps I should be skeptical of myself as Carl Sagan in a Catholic church. How many reasons here's a riddle. How many reasons does Carl Sagan have to be skeptical of organized religion? Billion. Okay, so have you any more precise questions for me?
Sure. So I guess I have 2 questions that kind of branch off that first question. But so the first one would be, how should one deal with the paradoxical choice of speaking out for doing what they believe is right versus accepting and allowing a situation to unfold with a sense of detachment?
That question is as easy as I was in high school, when we read the Tao Te Ching attributed to Lao Tzu, we read of his three treasures: simplicity, patience, and compassion. Simplicity, that's the real, you thought I was going to lift a different finger. Simplicity, that's the real challenge. Simplicity can be translated as centered spontaneity, and it makes sense when we look at it as if I was drawing a diagram on an imaginary whiteboard. Imagine a line. On one end, we have the control freak, contrivance. Everything is scheduled. On the other hand, we have the loose cannon, completely scattered. You know, like when you're a kid and you blow up a balloon, you let go of it, and it's like, whee! Okay, they're both people experiencing toxic yang energy. The antidote for the scatteredness is centered. The antidote for the contrivance, spontaneity. You marry those two antidotes and you get centered spontaneity. That arguably is the central theme of the Tao Te Ching. It's reflected in virtually each of the 81 chapters. So the test of a therapeutic contemplative practice, not just consistency that we do it twice daily, every day, come hell or high water, but that we're able, but by how it affects us during the meditation break. The late senior tutor of the current Dalai Lama of Tibet, Khyentse Rinpoche, used to say that a contemplative's day can divide everything that occurs within a contemplative's day can fit into two categories. The thing you do during the meditation session, the thing you do during the meditation break. The barometer of our meditation session is the stuff, whether it's glorious or whether it's grotesque, that we do during the meditation break. To put a finer point on that, the more we're able to glide forward in a state of centered spontaneity, the better. Therefore, if we have to ask, right now, should I do this or should I do that? We're in a state of contrivance. We've lost centered spontaneity. That's a great question to sit with, at the start of your meditation, and then let it percolate, let it break dance in your heart. But if it's a good, therapeutic, transformative set of techniques you're playing with, it'll fall by the wayside.
Sure.
Like a kid who's had too much candy. They're berserk. They're like a Tasmanian devil in a Bugs Bunny cartoon until they just have a nap attack. And likewise, these really poignant questions will eventually exhaust themselves out during the meditation session. And perhaps there were some visceral connections that we made subconsciously. But the key, someone could say, wait, if I'm acting from a place of centered spontaneity, I'm scared I might make an error. To which Captain Wiseass would respond, don't be scared. It's a certitude. You're gonna fuck up. But what separates the men from the boys is what we do with the fuck up. If in the presence of a fuck up we choose the scattered path of defensiveness, that's a defeat. If in the presence of a fuck up we choose the contrived path of hyper planning, how did this happen? How can I prevent this from ever happening? I'll write a dissertation upon it. That would be contrivance.
Sure.
The solution is when we are confronted with a star-spangled error. Our best bet is to be viscerally vulnerable to it. And many of the Chinese masters teach there's the brain in your head and the brain in your belly. Often the brain in our head is defensive and contrived, but we can be vulnerable viscerally and just drink in what happened, what led up to it, the consequences. Then our unconscious genius, you might call it Dharmakaya, you might call it Buddha nature, you might call it greater K, will process it. If we go through life with vulnerability, cultivating centered spontaneity, it will work out better and better and better.
So really it's about like finding that place of center spontaneity and just trusting that by living in from that place, you will do the right thing.
Right, and I would forgive me for being a picky bastard, because who doesn't love a picky bastard? I'm not fond of the idea of trusting or believing. It's been my experience that trusting and believing is a form of rigidity, both intellectual and emotional. And rigidity is a path beyond. I found there's more empowerment on the path of yin, the path of softness. So just to say, I don't know if this will work, but I would love it if it did work. And there is, I think the light's going down on yours. Are you running out of power?
No, I'm not. I don't have any lights on in my apartment, but
Love the prayer flags, by the way.
The sun is coming and going.
Oh, the clouds. Gotcha. Yeah. Okay.
Sorry about that.
No, that's fine. So it's better to say, I've already traversed the path of the uptight buffoon. I think I'm going to try the path, the laid-back sage. And a great example of that, a lot of people find spiritual empowerment, believe it or not, in rewatching the movie Big Lebowski.
Yeah.
And I remember the scene where he's in the bathroom, he's being tortured by not anarchists, it starts with an A, nihilists, German-sounding nihilists, sticking his head in the toilet, asking him where someone or something is. And he has the presence of mind. Clearly he doesn't enjoy having his head dunked in the toilet. But he has the presence of mind to say, oh no, let me take another look. Wow. Talk about centered spontaneity. That's amazing.
All right.
There's tales told in Tibet of Rinpoche's high masters taken away by the Red Chinese and tortured literally to death, who died while singing spiritual songs of awakening, spontaneous songs. That comes from the Kagyu tradition. That's impressive, to be that centered and that flowing.
Sure. So the next question I had was, which also kind of builds on what you were saying initially with compassion. So how can individuals feel compassion towards others who live with a completely different set of beliefs and often act and speak in ways that they find unkind and even hostile?
And let's take a ridiculous example. Some guy is grabbing your lapel with his left hand, and he's punching your nose with your right hand. How do you feel compassion for that bloke? Well, let's go back. Let's rewind our imaginary timeline back to our meditation session. If someone is practicing from the Theravada perspective, they're practicing the Anapanasati, the 16 contemplations of Buddha, they are creating a habit of noticing what's going on, relaxing, and exploring impermanence and the like. If someone, and by the way, from that Theravada point of view, they could see that not only is their body subject to change, and their sensations and their mind and the phenomena they're experiencing subject to change, but the body's sensation, mind, and phenomena of all beings are subject to change. And from that Theravadan perspective, they could see that the common denominator of change unites all beings on any side of any issue. Now, if you're into spooky Buddhist voodoo shit, Buddhist Tantra, like this guy, there are some delightful meditations where you can explore how the mind, the communication, body, and circumstance of all beings everywhere, subject to non-graspability. And it's that which acts as the common denominator.
So, in a way,
so I remember on 9/11 being in a public place. And I left my sense of self-preservation at home because I began saying to a group of very angry white people, not all Muslims are terrorists. Most are just like us. They want to be recognized at work. They want to come home to a nice warm meal and maybe a little nookie. They're just like us. And I tell you, the angry white people began surrounding me like white blood cells surrounding bacteria. So hopefully, if our meditation session is sufficiently potent regarding regardless of beliefs or behavior of the individual before us, we can notice them and relax. We can notice their behavior, relax. We can notice our feelings towards them, whether they're glorious or whether they're grotesque, and relax. And so we can use the panacea of mindfulness and insight, aka noticing and relaxing, to deal with, metaphorically speaking, the demons without and within. And we can relax into our shared common denominator.
Sure.
Going back to the idea of some guy pummeling you. Between punches, you can say, clearly you're stronger than me. Clearly you can beat me to death if you want to. But it won't turn out well for you. At the very least, you can get arthritis from the trauma that my nose is inflicting upon the joints of your hand and wrist. You might wind up in jail. You might wind up in prison. Your loved ones might lose respect for you. You might lose respect for you. Clearly, it's tough to say that between punches.
Sure.
And through whatever mingled mess one's mouth becomes. But luckily, each of us is equipped with a dynamic imagination. And we can, when that imagination throws at us a nightmare scenario, we can explore it and say, wouldn't it be cool if I could turn into my inner dude and find some center spontaneity in the midst of the chaos, in the midst of the nightmare.
Sure.
In Tibetan Buddhism, there is a much misunderstood practice called dream yoga, not designed to disrupt our sleep, but designed for manifesting a brand new car, although who wouldn't love a Tesla? It's designed to be used in hypnagogic state, in the morning, just when you wake up before your alarm clock and you pad back, from you return from the bathroom to bed, and you're in and out of sleep. And the idea is when dreams come, because you're hypnagogic, you're not quite unconscious, you can bring some of your favorite contemplative techniques into the dream. You look at the life stories of the great saints, the Kagyu tradition, who brought the 6 yogas of Tibet, or kept the 6 yogas of Naropa alive in Tibet. That's typically when they would practice, early in the morning as opposed to late at night. So the idea is, whether it's a dream or in a fantasy or when you're stuck behind a car in traffic, when a nightmare scenario pops into your head, play with it, using your favorite contemplative tools, not to make it go away, but as a great exercise. One of the greatest mistakes any contemplative makes, whether from a Theravada point of view, or a Vajrayana point of view, whether from a religious point of view or a secular point of view, is to use spiritual sounding techniques to just shove thoughts and emotions away. Because that's just more hate. And I'm pretty sure Buddha was not a big fan of that. And so, any goat can be happy when everything is coming at birth. A saint can find peace in the midst of a nightmare. And that's the test of our spiritual training. And so, rather than justify, minimize, or rationalize our failure to do that, the job of a mature spiritual practitioner is to find a senior practitioner, ordained or not, robed or not, male or female, who's had some success with that. Take them by the hand and give them practical techniques so that the next time their creativity, their imagination throws a metaphoric grenade at them, they can do something more resourceful.
Sure. So I got a couple more questions. The first one being, what spiritual teachings, universal truths, do you see expressing themselves in American politics today? And you've already talked about a couple of these as far as impermanence and compassion. What about like ignorance and like karma?
Right. So as a spiritual teacher, I'm more of yin. I choose yin instead of yang. Most karma teachings have become imbibed with superstition. Karma's going to get you if you don't watch out. When you look at the oldest teachings attributed to Buddha, the second noble truth isn't causes. The second noble truth is craving. Craving, a synonym for craving, is greed. Or if you're into airy-fairy stuff like this guy, pulling energy. So hatred is just pushing energy.
Sure.
Greed is just pulling energy. So it isn't like there's some celestial judge with a big K on his shirt, just buff. He's been going to CrossFit. No. We are the authors of our own problems, not from a past life, in this life, right now. What we're doing with our mind, what we're doing with what we're doing or not doing with our vulnerability. If we are So I think it was the 50s. Nikita Khrushchev took off his shoe at the UN, pounding the table, promised that we will conquer you from within. Metaphorically, our greatest enemies are within our own mind. Our own fear, our hate, our greed, our pride, our jealousy. These are our greatest foes. Whether you believe in rebirth or reincarnation, whether you believe in great celestial paradises or not, our life is made truly meaningful by the Beatles song. I forgot which one it was. You're pretty smart. Maybe you remember it. Remember the Beatles song that, and in the end, the love we take is equal to the love we make. In the microcosm of our own house or apartment, our own block, we can be a font, peace, and love. We can build rapport with progressives and conservatives. We can build rapport and love with those who feel that the best national health care plan is don't get sick. And we can build rapport with those who would watch Michael Moore's Where to Invade Next and sell it. If I was a filmmaker and I pulled the camera back beyond Washington, beyond America's southernmost border, and of course, when a geek such as myself cannot help but recall Men in Black, when Tommy Lee Jones said, "Thank you for protecting us from the dangerous alien." And he said it with complete sarcasm. We did a full enough, I don't know what you call it, reverse zoom with the camera. And you can remember that wonderful photograph that was taken by, I think it was Voyager, as it was preparing to leave the solar system. And Earth looked like a tiny blue speck, a mote suspended in a beam of light. It's, to paraphrase our friend Carl Sagan, this is the only place that we know of that humanity exists. This is the only place that we've been able to find thus far present something resembling intelligent life. If humanity is going to survive its own foibles and the environmental problems it has generated with its greed-driven short-sightedness, the only way we will do that is for an evolutionary shift away from greed, competition, towards love and cooperation. Arguably, evolutionarily speaking, you're a classic reptile, hardwired for competition. And generally speaking, the majority of the greater mammals, herd animals, are wired for cooperation. Look at, as a vegan, I'm fond of clips on YouTube that show a couple lions trying to take down a wildebeest. Two wildebeest. One runs away and brings back the entire herd. armed with their pointies, you say, I don't think you want to try that. As mammals, we already are wired for cooperation. Arguably, and Peter Joseph did a good job of explaining this in his book, The Human Rights Movement. It's a bit academic, but it's sound. It's well written, and there are great citations. Since the Neolithic Revolution, approximately 10,000 years ago, society has been structured in a way as to reward competition, reward greed, punish cooperation, and punish compassion, regardless of what lip service it might be. Not all the time, but the majority of the time, the majority of circumstances. There are some isolated pockets of civilizations that have thrived on a cooperative paradigm. But by far and large, we have currently embraced globally the competitive greed paradigm, and it's not sustainable. Here's something. You like irony. You like a bit of irony in your cornflakes. Patrick, check this out. The very same petrochemical transnational corporations that have known about man-made climate change since the 70s and have worked prodigiously to obfuscate it, cover it up, are now asking, they're demanding that the government spend billions of dollars to create seawalls to protect their refineries from the problems they helped create.
Right.
So still, they're using coercion and greed and deceit and manipulation to push this forward. I would talk to anybody who calls themselves a conservative. If they are, what's it called, secular, I would have them look at the writings of great men and women of reason. You know, Gandhi, Einstein, Martin Luther King. If they fancy themselves of men and women of faith, if they are Muslim, I would have them reread the writing of the Sufi mystics. And great Persian authors, two of them whose name eludes me at the moment, I mean no disrespect. If someone considers themselves Christian, then turn to their scriptures and find passages about love and that it's safe to perish. If the price of love is death, then pay it gladly. If someone is a Jew, there are Talmudic passages that praise love and cooperation and vulnerability. Same thing for my Hindu friends and my fellow Buddhists and my fellow Taoists and my fellow Wiccans. If they consider themselves a spiritual person, turn to the spiritual books that they cherish. Find passages of cooperation, love, and vulnerability. There are there. And be willing to unmask their own inner I'm reminded of the Christian parable. Well, not the parable, the saying, the accusation levied by Christ in the Gospels. They are whitewashed tombs, beautiful on the outside, but inside full of every corruption. We must look at the arguments we make to justify greed, to justify hatred, to justify competition, and wash away the veneer of malarkey, and be willing to look within ourselves at our own hideousness that each of us possess. We possess beauty, but hideousness. We possess every human potential on both ends of the spectrum. If we must commit to the soul searching required of those we view as our enemies. We must lead them by example. It's been promised by people who are wiser than myself. And quick caveat, enlightenment doesn't mean that you sneeze rainbows. It means that we've so mastered the tools of our spiritual path, secular or spiritual, whatever it is, that we're able to practice them spontaneously, habitually, easily, and effectively. That's enlightenment. And the way we spread enlightenment is not by climbing upon a soapbox or a YouTube channel. But forgive me if this is hackneyed, but by literally being the change we want to see in the world. Not enough to clutch our pearls, to clutch our pearls or wring our hands about the very real threats to humanity. We need to embody the solutions to the inner drives behind humanity's foibles. Yes, since the 70s, quality science fiction has rung the dinner bell of environmentalism, rightfully so, and racism, and rightfully so. But humanity is not where it's at because of a collective lack of physics knowledge, or chemistry knowledge, or ecological knowledge, or zoological knowledge. It's because collectively we've been giving in to our greedy, hateful, fearful impulses. We've been viewing them as reality, as opposed to just permanent phenomena. No more sun, the puffy white cloud meandering across an azure sky. It's good to practice the mindfulness that is aware of everything glorious and everything grotesque in our heart. But if all we practice is mindfulness, we're shooting ourselves in the foot. We must practice the insight that relaxes our grasp on what we feel, whether it's positive or negative. Insight. It is a great mistake of, well, it's a great lie of patriarchy. It tells that insight is a product of scholarly work and academic fervor. No. Insight is close as our next out. Mindfulness is close as our next in-breath. We are physiologically wired to tighten up subtly on every in-breath. Why doesn't that correlate to tighten the lasso of our attention, our mindfulness, our ability to notice? On every out-breath, whether we notice or not, or believe it or not, we relax. Grossly, perhaps subtly. And what a great physiological opportunity to practice mentally, at least in our grasp. We do that simply noticing, relaxing. Be transformed by it. Be forged into a habit. And be transformed by it. Be transformed the world. But that does not negate good conversations with people who are ready for it. It does not negate the power of signing petitions and circulating them on social media. It does not negate the pragmatic things we can do as consumers and as voters. But one of the many individuals, far smarter than myself, was Carl Gustav Jung. He used the idea of collective unconscious, wherein two men on opposite sides of the globe, out of touch with each other, this is pre-internet, they come up with the same idea at the same time. And it is as if ideas want to be born and they're just looking for this. We have been lied to. We have been told that we are part of a minority that sees the injustice of the system. We are told that we're part of a minority that chooses love, cooperation. That's Satan's second biggest lie. His first biggest lie, according to Usual Suspects, was convincing everyone he did this. The more enthusiastically and effectively train and to use the vernacular, our hearts, our minds, sustainable way, the more we can spread the contagion or contagion of mindfulness inside. Penny for your thoughts.
Say that again.
Penny for your thoughts.
Penny?
Penny, Penny.
Oh.
Penny is good too. Yes, it's delicious.
So, I mean, as far as that too, I think it's like important for individuals to realize that, especially, I mean, I am very progressive as well, but I think a lot of people with, I don't know, more conservative views or people that act out of the reptilian nature through competition, they like, I don't know, they don't necessarily realize that by having this much more money or getting this or getting that, it doesn't really satisfy their need.
I'm so glad you said that. I heard a report the other day. Now, this is a bad meta-analysis because I can't tell you who funded the study or how it was structured or who reviewed it. I'm sorry, bad geek. But recent study has shown that as one's income progresses geometrically, 100,000 annually to a million annually to a billion annually to several billion a month, one begins to demonstrate some of the symptoms of both sociopathy as well as psychopathy. One of the difference being a psychopath is born, a sociopath is made. One of the ways that they overlap is in an inability to read human emotion, hear it in people's voice, or see it in their faces or body language. And what's been studied is that the more dramatically someone's income multiplies, the less they have the ability to perceive the human existence. And this is not a moral indictment, it's a consistently observed phenomenon. And so it's ironic that the more our happiness is paid on the shoulders of others, the less human, in the best sense of the word, we become. Isn't that darkly ironic?
Yeah. Yes, it is. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, it's hard for me to, I guess, grasp with like a lot of what's going on just because, I don't know, like the money, the material possessions are not the answer, which is what a lot of people really believe.
It's ironic. Studies have shown that the stronger and more complete a social safety net there is, the less materialism. And the opposite is true. The weaker a social safety net is, exists at all, the greater the materialism is. And it could track back to, or trace back to, here. Are you a geek? As a child, did you watch reruns of Star Trek?
I am not. I'm a bit of a geek. I was never into Star Trek though.
No problem. Even as a geek, I could say many those were cringeworthy. I gotta say it. Sorry, Gene Roddenberry. But Gene Roddenberry, the producer of the show, and Martin Luther King, and Buckminster Fuller, people in 3 different disciplines, all very intelligent, agreed decades ago that humanity needs a universal basic income. And that, forget theories, studies have shown is that every time that's implemented, substantially implemented, not in a token way, but whereas people don't have to worry about
basic needs,
food and shelter.
Sure.
All of a sudden people start going back to school, or start opening businesses, or start using what talents they already possess and just giving them to worthy causes that they feel are worthy, and that people don't become lazy layabouts. The opposite. They bloom. And that's, whether you love engineering, or you love the civil rights movement, or you love sci-fi, 3 luminaries all said we need basic, universal basic income. There are some countries debating in Northern Europe whether they should limit CEO pay by ratio, that it can't be more than 8 times the salary of the least paid employee of the corporation. Right now in America, it's over 100.
Sure, yeah.
But these changes could be made. A lot of times the symptoms people describe as laziness, or being I hate the term welfare queen. Well, first of all, they were coined by Republicans who were not sociologists. They just wanted to untax corporations.
Right.
A lot of the symptoms, real or fabricated, are attributed to medical disorders, attributed to depression. Just as you wouldn't punish someone for having cerebral palsy, to punish someone for being depressed is absurd. And if you really don't like depression, then heal its causes, circumstantially and medically. A long time ago, American government became bought and paid for by law. There are foodstuffs sold that pass as food in America that are illegal in the European Union because they are so toxic to our mental and physical health. As citizens, we have arguably been betrayed by our representative government. And if you don't like depression, stop poisoning the populace with false foods, and stop exhausting the populace with fabricated fear and scarcity. Jeff Bezos, I've never met him. Perhaps he's a swell guy. He's earned a lot of money in just this one calendar year. In just this one calendar year, he's earned enough to completely reverse homelessness and poverty in America twice. The world's problems, the majority of the world's problems, are 100% solvable. We just don't have the collective will. Speaking as a geek, I gotta say, the rate of your problems that can't be solved simply by throwing enough engineers at it. Oh, how are the people who are paid to wear white lab coats? So we already have the means. In Seattle, they were engineering legislation to put a tax on the most profitable corporations to reverse the homeless situation. And a large corporation was thinking about coming to Seattle. They wanted the corporation there. And he said, well, you got to get rid of that legislation if you want us to come. There are very few problems that can't be fixed by curing greed and competition. And I'm going to assume for a moment that I know something about you. I'm going to assume that you interview people and that you write. And I suspect that if all your bills were paid for, you would still interview people and write because you love doing it. You know, I don't want a surgeon to operate on me who only does it for a paycheck. I want a surgeon to operate on me, assuming I need it, who loves the practice of medicine.
And helping others.
Right. You know, I want to work with engineers who love numbers, you know, who go to bed as a child with a slide rule instead of a stuffed animal. I want to eat the food grown by farmers who love farming. I want to eat the food made by people who love cooking. You know, there is I forgot what it's called, my great shame. But just as the Zeitgeist movement appears to many, many intellectuals as a lowbrow version coming from a guy from Ireland, very, very well received, endorsed by the Zeitgeist movement, talking about moving to a money-free society where great social safety nets, people don't need, people can just use their talents in ways that benefit society or cultivate their talents that benefit society. Humanity can do it. You can't do it top down. Russia proved that didn't work. Soviet Union proved that didn't work. Lenin, bless his heart, proved that didn't work. But from the bottom up, it can. Ask me another question, I dare you.
I do have one last question, actually.
Okay.
So this is the last one. So what, if any, applicable lessons can Americans render from the Tibet-China conflict and or Thich Nhat Hanh's role leading the engaged Buddhism movement of the Vietnam War?
Okay. Good question. Few Americans, especially those who enjoy history, have not seen the black and white grainy photograph of a Vietnamese felon shot point blank by another Vietnamese felon. The atrocities perpetrated against the Tibetan people are not as well publicized. It is naive to think that we can be a man or woman, love, cooperation, not run the risk of being taken advantage of, etherically or physically. An idealistic fool might go through life in rose-colored glasses, but the truly great men and women of spirituality, of human evolution, must count the cost and pay it anyway. What if love was its own reward? What if compassion was its own reward? What if mindfulness, what if the mindfulness and insight of meditation was our own reward? What if we didn't meditate for a payoff? What if we savored every process that occurs during every in-breath and every out-breath as if it was our last? Clearly it's smart to plan ahead, Nothing wrong with that. But if we live as if this was our last day, this was our last hour, then the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune might seem easier to bear. As a meditation teacher, I write practice. I write an advanced practice text which has all the techniques I teach. Of course, I break it up into little pieces. People's heads do not explode. I encourage people to memorize it so that, heaven forbid, they find themselves arrested. They can still practice in jail. One of my students found himself in jail after false charges were filed against him. We live in a day where many cops, not all, but many cops murder men and women of color. We live in a arguably fascistic society where the cops are concerned with protecting corporations and individuals. And by cops, I mean the police department. They're the individual. The police departments are run as if protecting corporations was more important than protecting society. It is not impossible for a peace-loving, non-violent political activist to wind up in prison. That's a possibility. Then train yourself to be able to practice your spiritual discipline without a law, without a practice text, without a I'm not talking about becoming some sort of a survivalist who lives for tomorrow who never comes. I'm saying go at what you do, eyes wide. For instance, if you fancy fitness, then learn techniques that don't require any equipment whatsoever. So if you find yourself incarcerated, yoga, FREEBIES, talking about meditate without your tools, without a mantra, without a mala, without a text, a tapestry. I don't wish imprisonment on anybody. I don't wish crippling or lethal assaults on anyone. I don't wish financial penalty levied on them. But it's not within the realm of imagination. If we are to be wise men and women of peace, we have to know what the cost might be and prepare ourselves to see that. Now, we are not lemmings. No one, very few people want to die. I wouldn't recommend it. But we must recognize that stakes for Earth's survival, the stakes of humanity's survival. Remind me of that line at the end of Casablanca when Humphrey Bogart's character says something along the lines of, this matters much more to individuals. This is a paraphrase. Apologies to all concerned. The survival of our species, the thriving of our species, depends on what we do spiritually. From a science fiction point of view, why haven't we found, like be there technology, efficient, or that we have cookies and we are aware. Or it might be that we are the leading intelligence. So to us, to populate the major galaxy, other galaxies, with intelligence, hopefully wise mind. Great futurists talk about non-human probes and ways this can happen. Many futurists say humanity does not get off Earth. We will not survive the next apocalyptic event, whether it be a comet, a meteor, the death of our own sun, which is eventual, it will happen. These things won't happen if we don't avert climate change. Humanity will not survive the crucible it finds itself entering already. We cannot grow up. We must be willing to become men and women of cooperation and compassion, regardless of the cost. But we should also do what we can to mitigate potential costs. Any questions?
That is all I have, but I do want to thank you so much for taking the time to.
Of course, you're totally welcome.
No, yeah, I greatly appreciate it.
Well, thank you. And of course, if ever you want to come to a series of meditation classes via webinar, you're welcome. And I'm easy to track down. Tough to miss. Me and my amateurish videos are tough to miss on me. And do you have any specific questions you'd like answered as far as, well, I'll tell you what, as far as clarifications for the article you're writing?
Sure.
Like, you seem very intelligent. I'm pretty sure you can figure out a spelling. If I say Narova, I say that, or if I say dream yoga, I'm pretty sure you can Google these words. You know, if I say Zabatul Bache, or I can say the Bache, or Dalai Lama of Tibet, I don't think I'm losing you in my best.
You would.
But if if certain spellings elude you, you're welcome to in Google. If I can't help you, you're welcome to contact me.
Sure. No, yeah. I could send you if I have any issues with clarification. I'll send you an email.
Great. Well, I thank you for the good work you're doing and your efforts to help people.
No, thank you as well.
I send you a great big psychic hug.
Bye.
Bye-bye now. And to all those listening at home, may you and yours be healthy and happy. And of course, you can register for the next series of webinars using the link below. Bye-bye now.